Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true.
Welcome to Night After Night, a podcast about 8 seasons in a row. I'm Lucifer Fernandes, and
I am Chris Jayawardena. Hello, everyone.
And here we are. We're almost at the end of season 1 of Laverne and Shirley. This is the episode, How Do You Say Are You Dead in German? We've got some interesting little factoids coming out of this one for y'all. It was written by Bob Brunner, and it was directed by John Thomas Lennox. And Chris has some facts about them.
Yeah, so Bob Brunner I believe, has written some other episodes before. That's what I have here in my notes, so we'll probably be covering that off and on. The reason why I wanted to bring up Lennox as the director, to once again show the nerd that I am, although mostly Lennox was known as a UPM and line kind of production manager for other productions and things like that. He also got his start, it seems like in the early 70s, as an assistant director. One of those assistant director jobs was for The Outfit, which is one of my absolute favorite polyester pulp crime movies based on the Richard Stark novel.
Things I did not know. I absolutely did not know that at all. That's neat.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Really neat.
Have you seen The Outfit? That's a good one.
I haven't. I've been meaning to see that one. I have not seen that one yet.
Yeah, and then right out the gate, just decide, hey, let's give some movie recommendations. But yeah, he did go on. Lennox did go on to direct a few other episodes of Laverne and Shirley and a few other episodes of other television. Unfortunately, he passed away, it seems like, in 1996, is according to what my research has told me.
That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And here's what the episode is about. When the girls do their chores in preparation of attending a Harlem Globetrotters game that evening, the delivery boy for Jiffy Cleaners arrives to return Laverne's sweater and passes out from hunger in their living room. After Shirley puffs him back to life, they learn his name is Eric and that he's a German immigrant with a very little mastery of the English language. He has been living in the back of the Cleaners because he's been swindled out of the land he bought before arriving in America. He was sold a farm in the middle of Lake Michigan. The poor guy. Mr. Coletti, the owner of Jiffy... I know. Poor Eric. Mr. Coletti, the owner of Jiffy Cleaners, promptly fires Eric for failing to return to the store, sparking a debate between the girls, Carmine, Lenny, and Squiggy about whether giving Eric a collection of money versus helping him get a new job will hinder or help him. Laverne takes the get him a job position, and Shirley takes the give him charity position, and they both accuse each other of either trying to pamper him or being unfeeling. Meanwhile, the ambulance the girls call for Eric instead hauls Squiggy off to the mental hospital, forcing Lenny and Frank to ride to his rescue. What do you think of this episode?
This was a ton of fun. This is definitely one of my favorites, I think, of the season. To be honest, it's got a lot to go in there. You have the way that they again, it's a case of the timing is really good. The characters really all get to shine. This is one of those really good ones that the cast just, they're balancing like all the aspects. They balance the little bits of drama, they balance the comedy, sometimes the shifts between straight man, goofy man, it just, and my God, the energy that they sometimes throw in, especially with the Squiggy subplot, is just phenomenal. I mean, when there's the moment when Squiggy comes running back in with the leather jacket and the hospital gown, and it's so intense. And Michael, my God, Michael, when he just comes in and he's trying to tell the story, and it's like, what do you mean? What happened? It's like, I'm getting to that. The ambulance. It's like, oh my God, I laughed.
It started
so hard.
going after me.
Go like every time I watch this episode, it makes me laugh. It's incredible.
Yeah. Considering how much turmoil was apparently going on behind the scenes when they were doing this episode, it's really interesting how well it comes off. And it comes off pretty well. Maybe it's a little disjointed. I would call it plotting-wise, it's a little disjointed. You can kind of tell what they're trying to do. They're trying to set up this Aesop about how it's important. It's not even quite bootstrappy. It's kind of bootstrappy in its own way. But it's also about how the girls kind of mistrust each other's truest direction, the truest ideas in a lot of ways. So about the behind the scenes turmoil, apparently this is one of those episodes where everything was a mess backstage. They kept firing people, kept firing writers, kept firing directors. But somehow they got everything together. somehow it worked. Somehow it worked because this has two of my favorite minor characters ever. Two of my favorite minor characters ever to appear on the show is in this episode.
Mm.
That'd be Eric and Hildy, the German waitress.
Mm-hmm. And you were telling me that Hildy doesn't come back, right?
She does not, and I am sad.
It's so sad. I mean, she has, again, it's a case of like 2.5, 3 minutes of screen time, and she's amazing.
Yeah. And she has so much chemistry with Eric. You could go, I want to see the two of them end up together. I want to see them like being two happy folks just talking German to each other, just getting to hang out.
Yeah.
And it's like, it would have been interesting to have an interracial couple in the 50s, the 60s in this setting, in a Milwaukee that is so white.
Mm-hmm.
It's so white, and that's so anachronistic.
Oh yeah, completely anachronistic.
As citizens of Milwaukee complained about at the time, as is a problem now as you watch the show. It's very white.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would have been so nice.
It would have been. I totally agree. I mean, I'm thinking of like people coming to the pizza bowl and they're speaking German to each other. He's doing something. He says something to her in German, or they're commenting on something, and the customer comes in and goes, "Wait a minute, I thought this was an Italian restaurant." And it's there's so many cute possibilities for a little situational comedy to get thrown in there, as along with the fact that it's. The fact you don't get to check in on Eric and especially on Hildy as well, because I mean, God, I'm trying to imagine, a black woman in the 50s working at an Italian restaurant. That probably was in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I'd have to look up when some of the laws, were getting changed and passed, especially like with regards to like interracial relationships, because,
gosh, does time move slowly in that respect. It takes so long for justice to occur. It takes so long for societal change to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And you think of how long it took, like, loving, to resolve and everything to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's, but this is why, you remake, if you remake the show, and Gary Marshall threatened to remake the show before he died, if you remake the show, please, 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 just make the characters less white, please. I beg y'all. I beg y'all, please. Oh my goodness. This is, you brought up the little subplot where Squiggy ends up getting taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the combination of how David acts this out, and just like, it was like, well, it happens to him, and he fought his way out. He fought his way out of that mental hospital, and there he is. And just the mental image of Squiggy doing all of that and just getting there without anybody's help. And all the little one-liners, Sorry.
Yeah, well, and to add on to it, I mean, because like my question always is, is how did Squiggy get his jacket back? I have this in my notes of like questions of like, did he have a spare? Did he steal it from someone? Or is he like a hitman who has a gun stash, somewhere around the house, but instead around the city, but instead it's jackets. He's always got a jacket somewhere. So whenever he needs it, he has to go to like, the corner of 3rd and Milwaukee and go grab another jacket.
It's even funnier because Lenny has his pants.
That's the best part.
He's walking around those pants on. But the jacket stayed.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I gotta say, Squiggy, despite being a slob, keeps a clean jacket.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, boys' clothing is generally clean. I think the only time we get told all these things about how horrible and filthy and smelly they are, but they do not outlook it because TV. But the only time I can ever remember them actually having dirty clothing besides Lenny's sweats would be the one time in the future when he breaks his leg after Squiggy shoves him out the window in season 5. Well, he doesn't mean to shove him out the window. He accidentally knocks him out the window. I
was thinking, like, was this a Bron Stark moment? Like, okay, what's going on here?
No, he lands in a garbage can, so garbage saves him. And the bottom of his foot is dirty, but it's the foot that's broken, which no hospital would let happen. But that's the only time I can ever remember them like looking as any of them looking as dirty as the show says they look. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just
It's a
That's that continuity.
yeah, it's a detail.
Yeah, it's a
But yeah,
detail. It's a
yeah,
detail.
but yeah,
Don't get bogged down in that minutia, kids.
but the as we were saying though, yeah, I love the as you point again, also just bouncing off, like I love how that becomes its own, that subplot becomes its own thing, and it lets Frank and Michael and David get to really shine. You have the and then you also like every character like kind of gets a sort of a gag, and I agree. Like I feel like plot wise, there's these gaps, but yet it's sort of made up for by this being such a character focused episode where each character gets something. Like I'm going through my notes and like just like the physical comedy with Penny and Penny and Cindy, Laverne and Shirley about them
Yeah.
trying to resuscitate Eric and,
Yeah.
and just like,
Yeah.
and like, I love that nervous shuffle together in sync. And
Yeah.
then, just before
Yeah.
that, right, let's not panic. Let's call the Undertaker. No, the hospital. It's like, it's like, right, hospital.
My favorite bit is when they try to do a pointing game to try to figure out who's going to unbuckle his pants.
Yes.
And then Laverne loses. Why do I always lose?
Yeah, and it's because those songs, if there's only one person if there's only two people, I figured this out when I was a kid. If there's only two people, it's always going to be the same result. Whoever gets picked at first, it's always going to be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
That
recurs later. That recurs in season 2.
Oh gosh, yeah, because it's a what'd you call it? It's like a card counting thing,
Yes. Yeah. I love Frank's reaction to that. Why you? Always you. Why?
Oh my god! And I love how she gets like the scolding reaction, that pouting on the side of the couch. It just kills me. I love it.
Yeah. Just everything about that is hilarious. Shirley kind of going. I puffed a man back to life. She should have just become a doctor. Let's be real.
Yeah, let's just
she should have become a doctor. Yeah. Forget marrying a doctor. Yeah. We get an episode where she goes into nursing in season 2, and she should just, she shouldn't be chasing a doctor. She should be a doctor, and that's my Shirley stance for the entire show. Darn it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree though. I mean, I absolutely believe that. I agree completely. Yeah, I completely agree with that, because it makes you wonder how much of that is a case of that they were unintentionally doing the aspect of how some women that they were, because they couldn't do the things that they wanted to do or be the types of people they wanted to be, they ended up like marrying themselves to the people in those positions.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, even there was that Ida Lupino movie that almost kind of did that. The one with the Bigamist with, what was it?
Yes.
Ed O'Brien and Joan Fontaine, and how Joan Fontaine in that movie becomes such a good businesswoman herself. They begin to realize, she doesn't even need the husband. She actually is capable enough to do it on her own. That's probably the reason she married him. Yeah.
As Cher once said after her mother tried to tell her to go marry a rich man, she said, "Mom, I am a rich man." The best story. That's the best story forever.
I love that.
Shout out to Cher, wherever she may be right now. And there's a lot of really good dialogue in this episode, in spite of everything that was apparently going on behind the scenes, because things were getting cut. Scenes were getting cut. Lines were getting cut. Mm-hmm. This is according to Michael McKean. He did an interview for IMDb where he was talking about this episode. He also did an impression of Cindy backstage during this episode, just before they were about to go on, where she was putting on chapstick, and she looked at him and went, "Show's cooking." Story. It's my favorite story.
Yeah. What was it you were because you were telling me about that as we were prepping for this episode? It's the most Norma Desmond sounding thing.
I linked you to the interview and I said, "Why does Cindy sound like Norma Desmond in the story?"
Yeah, it's oh god, it totally sounds like it though. No, I totally agree. It's like, huh.
I just love the way he delivers that bit of info and that voice, and I'm like, I've been when you've been a fan of someone for like this long and you deliver on it, oh yeah, I can you can almost like picture Cindy saying it in a way. But on the other hand, I just love that it even happened. It even happened that way, that she even said that. Show's cooking. I've used that line on multiple other people. Show's cooking since I heard that.
Show's cooking. My gosh.
Show's cooking. Show's cooking.
And yeah, so it's not actually, I guess probably the next thing to cover as much because we've covered a lot of like the practical stuff, the comedy stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things. I guess the individual things. The point of the episode I thought was kind of interesting. The
Yeah.
sort of as you're saying, the Aesop,
Yeah.
aspect. What is your take on kind of the moral or the message that this episode tries to get across, or at the very least, a possible example it tries to put forward?
Yeah. Well, it's like they're trying to give us an Aesop where it's better to give a person to teach a person how to fish. You teach the person how to fish, they know how to fish and how to take care of themselves. Give them the opportunity of the job, they'll continue to be able to feed themselves no matter what. Well, not no matter what, but if you just give them temporary charity, they'll only be able to feed themselves for a couple of days. That's what they're trying to make point-wise. They're trying to give us point-wise. It's kind of bootstrappy, but not, because the ultimate point of it is that Shirley thinks Laverne's being horrible and unemotional and cold. And in reality, she's being warm and kind. The show takes on mental illness multiple times. This is the first time they do it in a jokey way, but we get much, much more serious episodes coming up later that tackle it and tackle the subject, and it's interesting how the way the show handles it changes. And in this case, this is the first time we kind of get this version of the show's opinion about class issues. That there are people out there even more poor than the girls and the guys. That the best way for them to help him is to kind of bring him up on their level. He gets a job at the Pizza Bowl. He's kind of making the same amount of money that they do. So, yeah. Anyway, that's what they're trying to go for, I think. Yeah. So, what'd you think?
Yeah, because I guess because I was feeling similarly. Like I understand it, and I feel because it is interesting how he accepts the job. He doesn't accept the actual money, the actual like object essentially. And I guess that's it's because I think that's the message. Definitely, it's the very 20th century American ideal of opportunity, not charity.
Yes.
Which of course is in itself, as time has gone on and our perspective has evolved, we begin to realize that sometimes the opportunity is the most needed charity than anything else, and that also opportunity without the charity or the support to make that opportunity successful is also then itself it makes it more of a hollow gesture. So yeah, it was interesting to see how they kind of worked around it. It's a simple after school sort of thing, but it comes off as I guess what I appreciated is that they were trying to make clear the point that the charity was looking at as a gesture that was almost a bit patronizing. With the way that they discuss it, not so much the way he reacts to it, but the way they discuss it privately. And that the pity they feel for him is incredibly infantilizing. Like it's really looking down on him.
And Laverne's the one who's looking at him like he treat him like a human being, treat him like someone who could take care of himself. That is a perfect crystallization of what they're trying to do here. That's much better crystallization of what that guy was trying to say. That was very good. That's what they're trying to do. You compare that. Shirley's tendency with people is to baby them. To be real, she mother hens everyone. She mother hens Laverne constantly. Eventually, she mother hens Squiggy. Eventually, she mother hens Lenny. She does it to everybody but Carmine, basically. Even I think she does it to Frank at one point. I think.
My gosh.
But that is her default. Her default is to protect and baby, and that comes out here big time. Versus Laverne, who kind of like shoves you good-naturedly in the right direction. A couple of tough words. And Shirley again just interprets that as horrible and cold, and then she's wrong. And I loved her line for when that happened. Which was, "I hate it when you're kind and warm, and I'm not ready for it. It drives me nuts." Now, what does that say about their relationship? That it drives her nuts because she's not expecting it.
Especially the perception they have of each other as well, because I think that's also what causes the interesting conflict between kind of the banter between the two, and I think that's also what we we find fascinating about this show is that it reflects how our own perception of ourselves and the other and the way people look at and also the way people look at us, how we perceive their perception is very is kind of the key thing that can make something either work or not, because it's sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it's not, and sometimes also it's the expectation we have of somebody is kind of false, that we're not looking at them as being a rounded person. We're trying to simplify them into something we can categorize, and it's it can be and again it becomes kind of patronizing to look at people that way.
Yeah. I mean, even John Hughes hit that point in the 80s, The Breakfast Club, that you can't really put people in boxes. People aren't that simple. I don't know. I don't know if the girls really constantly do that to one another. I wouldn't say that. In a way, they know each other better than anybody else on the planet. But in a way, they know themselves better than the person next to them know them, even their best friend. So, as the series goes on, we'll see if this echoes.
Curious, yeah. I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
But
What?
Yeah.
On a lighter note,
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. So, did you have one?
Well, I just had the one thing I was just going to say. It just reminded me of. I was also glad to see this is a use of the boo boo face. That was very cute and very relatable.
Not the boo boo face. Not the boo boo face. Don't do the boo boo face. I love it the way. Probably one of my favorite jokes is when Shirley's taking down how much money each of the boys are going to pay in to the charity that they're going to give to Eric. And Lenny tells her to put in $5 and he's obviously not going to be paying for it. And she tells him that's very generous of him. It's it's your charity, honey.
Yeah, even though isn't the girls are going to front them the money to then pay into it, if I recall?
Yeah. That starts a history, to be honest, in the show.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah. Where the boys actually get to the point where they're paying their rent in Monopoly money, and then they're stiffing them by $20.
Oh God! Oh my God!
That happens. That's coming. That's happening. I love I love that brings me to another point. When Eric passes out, Shirley blames the boys for it. She thinks this is a practical joke that they just dumped some person or something on their rug. And it's a practical joke, and I have no idea what that either says about her or what that says about the boys, but it's hilarious.
I mean, the boys probably had other friends that they would, pay 50 cents to do that kind of crap in high school,
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, all right, pretend you passed out, and don't worry about it. We'll give you 50 cents. And it's like, I'll get, and it's like, I want more than that. All right, then we'll give you $50. You got a deal, and and so they
the guy in the story has to be
that's my take on it anyway. Is that it's probably has happened before, and they probably have had or had something like it happen before. Some other practical joke where there's something waiting, and then they ambush her.
Yep, double makeout. Double makeouts are coming. That's another part of the show.
Oh gosh.
That's canon. We do get a lot of really good lines in this episode.
You mean like hey Laverne, I'm passing out, lick me?
Lift me.
Oh wow, I'm sorry. I heard that. Okay, my mind was in the gutter when I was rewatching this episode. My apologies. I'm quarantined here, man. We're on lockdown in Oregon at this time. As we've been saying a lot through our recording sessions, you laughed, I'm off the hook.
Yeah, there you go. I think that would be the line that they would want to have said, but no, he says, lift me, and then pass it out, lift me. That's the only way you can get her to mouth on his at that point. And then she just grabs him and shoves him into Squiggy. That's good physical comedy too.
That's right. Yes. Comedy. Oh, that's the punk. Yeah, head first into the bits.
Punk. Right into the bits.
Yep. Yeah, and even the way they pronounce the I'm not going to the theater, which always makes me think of Rudy Ray Moore movie trailers. Coming soon to this theater. Yeah.
Yeah, the good back to the dialogue point I was gonna make. Probably my favorite one was where Squiggy, Carmine, and Lenny are taking Eric to the pizza bowl, and he says, Carmine says he's gonna. I think it's Carmine said he was gonna teach him how to bowl,
Yeah.
and Squiggy goes, "How are we gonna teach him how to bowl? The pins are in English."
Right.
Which is
I love that. Yeah. That. Oh God. I started laughing because I knew exactly where you were going with that. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah. There's so many zingers in this episode. That's why this is
yeah.
definitely one of my favorites for this season.
Like I'll freeze my hair off.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. Whenever Squiggy refers to his hair being frozen off by how cold it is in Milwaukee, which I happens like 3 times, it's great. Uh, but yeah, this is the second time we hear about Mrs. Lederhausen, who Frank is dating. She will disappear in season 2, conveniently enough, so he can date the girl's landlady, who we will be meeting in a few episodes next season. I think it's interesting how they portray Frank in this entire series as someone who has an active sex life to Laverne's utter horror, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was amusing. She knows it's happening and she hates it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't blame her for hating it.
But there is that line where oh God, what is it? It's like he knows how to give mouth to mouth. What do you think he's doing?
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. That's utterly perfect. And I love that Laverne bargained this one job for Eric out of Frank by saying she and Shirley will come eat at his apartment twice a
Mm-hmm.
week, and then it never happens in canon. It must happen. It happens off screen, or
I'm hoping
you
so.
know.
Yeah. Oh God, that last line. It's like I hate eating at your father's place. He makes fun of the way I eat spaghetti.
Spaghetti. I love that.
And now I'm wondering, how does she eat spaghetti? Does she like get like anal retentive and have to like cut into little cubes with a fork and knife? Because I did that
That's
once.
actually what I was. Yeah, I was picturing she's either chopping it with her knife and fork, or she's winding it in a way that he finds annoying, or something like that. I mean,
oh, what if it's she slices the meatball if it's meatballs, because I mean I know many
Yeah.
traditional spaghettis don't do that, but if slicing the meatball, you put it on top like a layer, then cut around it, and then put it all on the fork like it's layered.
I can see her doing that. She's that organized. Yeah, that makes sense for her character.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that last moment in that final in that scene, with the job, where they're getting ready to go, and then she runs into the before Laverne runs to the bathroom. I thought it was interesting. They actually, like again, this is 1976 or so, that they opened up their underwear drawer and like you actually see in Laverne's hand her garter belt and panties and all that, and it was like, okay.
That becomes a running theme too. At one point, the boys are trapped in the girl's traveling trunk because they've gone off on a trip, and they stowed away in the traveling trunk. And it's revealed that Lenny ate one of her garter belts to survive.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem nutritious.
No. And yet he survived, and God only knows how.
I mean, what do they make those things out of back then? I wonder. Huh.
Cotton.
Great. Now I want to look this up. Oh, great. Okay. I'm gonna have my Google's. Okay, I've got to still Google search. Were 1950s garter belts edible?
This is a big no.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's a no.
This is a no.
But yeah, it is really cool. There are some amazing moments like that. Just or I should say that there's little comedic moments. Going back to the stuff with Frank and the stuff with all these different characters throughout. And it's interesting you mentioned, going back a little further to what you said about how they were cutting scenes, stuff was getting cut out and rewritten, basically down to the wire, it sounds like, on some of these shooting days.
Yeah.
And you kind of can tell from one really interesting aspect, which is that the final scene of the episode is where they come back from seeing the Harlem Globetrotters and they do their little dance and all that. It's a great, it's a great little beat, and it's wonderfully like vaudevillian, almost old school silent cinema and sweetly innocent. Um,
Yeah,
but it's also the interesting thought of like there was no really narrative more to say, so they just had to put in a joke. That's all they had
yeah,
left.
yeah. They had extra time for the tag, and they didn't know what to put in the tag, so they're just kind of pretending to bounce an invisible wall along.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like you could tell certain episodes. You can absolutely tell they're vamping for time.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the episode, and it depends on what the heck was going on. But some of them are just you can tell which ones caused David to drop kick a script into the rafters, so to speak, which really happens.
Oh wow. Oh, that takes skill.
Yeah, that's what Michael said. He brought it up in the Laverne and Shirley A&E biography. This is what this quote comes from. He was impressed that he got it all the way up in the rafters, and yeah, yeah, it's just like sometimes some of these episodes you can tell why they got upset at the writing because some of the episodes just are disjointed or missing
Mm-hmm.
that little extra ingredient. But this is one of those episodes that has a lot of things that either should be expanded on or used more
Mm-hmm.
or should recur. Characters should recur. So the ultimate stew that is the episode is not quite there, but it has worthwhile parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of like a I don't know. It's kind of like a meatball floating in a beef stew. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, it's like there's some aspects, some seasoning, or it's like like you're doing a
Yeah,
stew without the vegetables, and it's like
yeah.
you can't really call it a stew without the vegetables.
That brings me to something that I found amusing when I was rewatching this episode. The girls can barely afford anything, but they can afford dry cleaning.
Yeah, and that was like what, like $3, $3.20.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, which is you think would be a luxury they wouldn't be able to afford, considering some of
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that they go through in this season, some of the stuff that they go through later on
Mm-hmm.
in the series. But yeah, I thought that was. I was like, gee, I didn't know that they could afford that.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because they also, even in that first scene, I just was checking my notes, and yeah, they have that, like, was it 28 cents that they were trying to save on
Yes.
something, and it's like, yeah, so it's interesting, yeah, the balance of it, and I guess it's the catch when doing this type of writing. I mean, because we've written these types of characters and tried to figure, I'm sure,
Yeah.
at least with your being so much more prolific than I, that you've probably have gotten to where like you've worked, maybe even worked out like the budgets that a character has, on a week to week basis.
Yeah.
I haven't gone that crazy yet, but I will, and I intend to. And I intend to
Yeah.
go madly insane with joy doing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like one of those things that you try. The show's very good at keeping everything blue collar. We've said that before.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
they're really good at the way they spend their budget. I just thought that was like, I was like, could they have afforded that? I had
Mm-hmm.
that little thought bubble moment while I was watching this last time.
Like that was even the nice touch that a few episodes prior, with the fake out of the stakeout,
Yeah.
the Milwaukee Masher has even taken one of the recurring coats. That's one of the coats that he
Yes.
stole out of their wardrobe.
Yeah. Yep. The show knew how to recycle wardrobe. When they got new clothing, it was a big deal.
Hmm.
That kind of holds in the California years, but not quite. Everything goes up budget wise in the California years, and it kind of loses its blue collar roots, but not quite. But it does.
Hmm.
So we'll see. We'll get there. We'll get there. Probably this is the episode that sets up the girls' personalities when it comes to cleanliness versus sloppiness. And this will become more and more of a thing as they continue to evolve as characters throughout the season. Laverne had peaches under her bed somehow. They're showing
Yeah.
this
Oh
thing
my
under the
gosh.
bed. And it was just like, it was like, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder how moldy that was. And But that continues, and then yet they make fun of Lenny and Squiggy. Like,
Mhm.
come on, you're kind of doing the same things.
Mhm.
It's like they make fun of they're horrified and grossed out by what they're eating. There was an episode where Laverne eats scooter pies and tuna fish salad together. And you're like, so they're making fun of them, and they're doing the same thing.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, that's a plot point at some point. That's a plot point at some point.
I mean, it could be that they're
Yeah.
just projecting that they are themselves, deep down inside their higher self is saying, why are you eating this? Oh, well, you have to justify it. Well, make fun of them to feel better.
Well, that's what we were talking about, the boys being girls' mirrors, their funhouse mirrors,
Mm-hmm.
vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah, it definitely comes in at that point.
What do you think of this one? What was your grade?
For me, this one is a really solid, like, I'd say like a 7 to a 7.5, I would say. Just because it's as disparate as it is, the individual parts just make me laugh so hard that it's like from a comedy level and a staging, directing, blocking, element. I mean, they're dealing with this essentially a mess, of a really complicated script, and they're able to make it very watchable. So unfortunately, it would be higher if it had more. I guess in that case, more of a 7, because if it would be higher if there was more weight, or at least maybe nuance given to the moral the aspect, the moral of the story. But it's got so much character here that I really enjoyed, and as I was mentioning before, we're starting to get into where these characters getting more solidified and kind of coming together. The crux of them, and that because this is a good example of getting to see more aspects played with. Because Lenny and Squiggy having some weird, bizarre example where one of them tries to fly down the ambulance, starts screaming, and gets taken off to the loony bin, is it's very Lenny and Squiggy. By this point in the show, we know that's very Lenny and Squiggy.
Yeah.
Whereas if this had been like episode 2 or 3, we would have been like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about how do you say "Are You Dead" in German? Is that it's a good episode at the right point in the season.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a favorite for me, just from a sheer comedy delivery standpoint. And even though I do agree, I wish that there had been a little more, perhaps said, or a little more nuance to the moral or the point they were trying to make, because it is it is a bit bootstrappy, and it's also not really understanding the complexity of those issues. But I like that they did try and part of the elements and especially the way it pays off with Laverne and Shirley also being a reflection of, or being an example of the surprise they sometimes feel with each other, that one or the other has that softer side. And that was good. So solid 7.
Yeah. This is a right around 5 for me. It's disjointed enough to make sure to keep it away from me wrecking it higher than I normally would have. The plot disjointing kind of annoys me at certain points, but there's so many nice minor characters. There's a lot of good ideas. Honestly, I would have taken a whole episode of them trying to break Squiggy out of the mental hospital.
Oh my god, yes.
I really am sad that never happened. I would have taken a whole episode of Eric and Hildy together, but the end, what you get is everything mashed up together, and parts of it are good. Parts of it could have used more establishment, more work, a little more time to gel. So that's why it's a solid 5 for me. That's a solid 5 for me. It's good in parts.
Gotcha.
I will say.
So you feel like in some respects, I guess my question then to you is this a case that you feel making this have been an hour-long episode or a 2-parter have helped, or do you feel that there was still too much intrinsically difficult with the structure entirely, that just that amount of time wasn't enough, that it needed to be more stretched out, where like more of this chunk over here and the more of this chunk over there?
If there's a way to rework it, the plot just need to be reworked, honestly. What I would have done, if it's me, is I would have taken the whole mental hospital part of it and put it in a whole different episode. That really need to be in a different episode. I would have kind of made the stuff with Eric more serious. I would have at least given us a tag scene with him and Hildy at the restaurants. and maybe plant a little seed in the audience's head going, maybe they're getting along. Well, this is nice. Maybe this will lead to something. And I would have maybe pointed out or stretched out the fact that even if you get a job, and even if you get a job with a good person, I would have compared Mr. Coletti to Frank, first of all. We kind of need a scene with Mr. Coletti when he's there. So we can either hammer in his assholishness or point out that, hey, even people who try end up sucking because of the economy, because of white privilege, because of all kinds of things, because of privilege of being an American citizen or being born in America versus being an immigrant.
Right.
I just feel like they should be two different episodes. There should have been a little bit more work put in. You could do it in a half hour. You can definitely do it in a half hour, because the episode this reminds me of is the one the Golden Girls did, where Sophia springs her dementia-stricken friend from the home. They bring her home. They can't handle it. They try to fight the system. The system is shitty, and the people in charge of the nursing home know it's shitty. And ultimately, they have to step in with their own solution because the system sucks. That's what parts of this, weirdly, probably very, very weirdly remind me of. Yeah. And, so it's really doable. It's doable in a half-hour format. It just needed more tinkering, I think. That's the way I feel about it.
Cool. It's a good perspective. Thank you for sharing. That was good to hear.
Thank you. You're welcome, as always. Yeah.
Yes. So I guess, does that wrap us up then?
Yeah.
All right. Well, excellent. Well, thank you again, everyone, so much for joining us for yet another episode of Night After Night podcast, where we talk about 8 seasons in a row of Laverne and Shirley. So, as we've often say, if you wish to listen to any more of us, we are on the services where you found this particular episode, and as well, if you want to check out a little more Laverne and Shirley goodness, we're also on Twitter at Night After Night PC, and you can follow us there. We I think by now we'll probably be at this point we're doing much more of the like watch-alongs and stuff like that, which are kind of cool events to check in with us. And then there's also us on Facebook, and we also have a Patreon if you'd like to support us. We have some incentives that are pretty awesome, and we would love to have your support and just to be able to bring you guys a little more content. And then as well as we're on the YouTube where you can find these episodes, and I think that's gonna be kind of it. But make sure to look out for us at Night After Night Pod or Night After Night PC on Twitter. Thank you again so much. And Lisa, what are we doing next? It's episode 14, where we've got 2 more of the season left.
Yes, this is the first Shots Talent Show episode. Very first one ever. It begins a pattern of yearly reoccurrences of this talent show. There's 4 all total. The girls will audition their act and probably fail, but you'll have to tune in next week to find out. All
right. Well, I'll certainly be here for that, so I hope you guys will join me and join Lisa and join us all in having ourselves a good time, night after night. And, all right, but I guess that'll be all from us for now, and stay classy out there, everybody.
Keep your house clean, people. Keep your house clean.